Now we are discussing different codes related to different professions, and the purpose of this discussion is to work out certain things which are common, applicable to all professions, and certain guidelines which are specific to particular profession. So in that sequence, we have seen the codes meant for the teachers. And today I ask you to come up with some study on the professional codes meant for scientists and engineers.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I will discuss professional codes for mathematicians. First of all, I will give a brief introduction about the topic. It deals with the professional responsibilities of mathematicians whose work influences decisions with major consequences such as in law, finance, the military, and environmental science. Now, what are the responsibilities of mathematicians? Let's see. First one is, mathematicians should not make public claims of potential new theorems or the resolution of particular mathematical problems unless they are able to provide full details in a timely manner. Second one is, publication of mathematical results as one's own when the author has learned of the results from others. For example, through published materials, lectures, conversation, or earlier informal publication constitutes plagiarism, and this is a form of theft and which is unethical and constitutes serious misconduct. Mathematicians should take care of it that these kind of misconduct should not take place. Next one is to give appropriate credit even to unpublished materials and announced results. As we know that the knowledge that something is true or false is valuable, however it is obtained. Next one is, mathematicians in professional roles in finance and similar work have a particular responsibility to ensure that they use the best methods and data to reach the right answer, as the prestige of mathematics is high and others rely on mathematical results which they cannot fully understand. Next responsibility of mathematician is, mathematicians in professional roles in finance and similar work have a particular responsibility to ensure that they use the best methods and data to reach the right answer, as the prestige of mathematics is high and others rely on mathematical results which they cannot fully understand. Next one is to endeavor to be knowledgeable in their field, especially about work related to their research. Means mathematicians should have complete knowledge of their research work. Next one is to publish full details of results that are announced without unreasonable delay, because claiming a result in advance of its having been achieved with reasonable certainty injures the community by restraining those working towards the same goal. Mathematicians have a professional responsibility to support the same practice, both sustain the reputation of the profession and protect society from the impacts of ethical behavior. Not only mathematicians have responsibility, the researchers and authors also have responsibility that that each individual researcher and author should understand and uphold high standards of ethical behavior, particularly in relation to the publication and dissemination of their research. Means the work or ideas that they are sharing, they should maintain their standards. Here is a list of some mathematical societies: Indian Mathematical Society, American Mathematical Society, Australian Mathematical Society, Brazilian Mathematical Society, Italian and Indonesian Mathematical Society. There are also many more societies. Indian Mathematical Society. Our Indian Mathematical Society, it is the oldest organization in India devoted to the promotion of study and research in mathematics. And this society was founded in April 1907 by V. Ramaswamy Iyer with its headquarters at Pune. And I would like to share one thing that one of our professor, Dr. A.K. Das sir, is also a member of this Indian Mathematical Society. Next one is American Mathematical Society. The American Mathematical Society publishes a code of ethical guidelines for mathematical researchers. The responsibilities of researchers include being knowledgeable in the field, avoiding plagiarism, as I discussed earlier, and giving credit to publish without unreasonable delay and to correct errors. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Anjali. I hope your friends and you have consulted the guidelines given by different mathematical societies, which you have just shown.
Yes, sir.
So this is a good brief of the professional codes meant for mathematicians. Now, the main points which I wish to highlight, yesterday we did a bit of that. The points is related to plagiarism. When we use someone's work, so we need to acknowledge that person's contribution to the knowledge, and that acknowledgement must be in terms of referencing, quotation, mentioning name wherever the ideas are used, and then not to claim anything which is not yours, right? So plagiarism has basically two-fold dimension. When you are using someone's knowledge, so you must acknowledge that you are using someone's knowledge. And second is that whatever is said by others should not be claimed by you. In these two ways, we avoid plagiarism. And then one interesting point which you raised, and I consider that, yes, this must be in our awareness, that whatever we find during our research, we must publish it. We must publish it for the purpose of information to others that this work is already done. So it has so many interesting things. Number one is that you publish and therefore you get recognition for that. Second is that if someone else is trying in the same direction, so the person will not waste time on the thing which you have already done, right? So once you publish, it becomes a public property, and therefore it is available to others so that they can see it and they can think over and above that. They should not use time to think the same thing which you have done. Related to this is one very important ethical concern, is that when we, let us say, develop a derivation, so derivation reaches to different stages, right? So if we are focusing on a particular point, all the findings related to that must be published in one piece of work. If we are dividing the whole of derivation and publishing bits and pieces, this is called salami publication or salami slicing. Salami publication or salami slicing is basically publishing your work in bits and pieces, not in totality, right? So if there is a particular derivation, of course, there will be stages of that derivation, but then it will constitute just one work. So this is also an academic and professional demand that the publication must be in totality. So we must provide full details. What you said, the full details of your work must be published, which also include that whatever is relevant to your publication, you are giving in one work, right? And of course, there are limitations of any publication, so we need to consider that limitation, but whatever is essential about your publication must be published in one piece, not in different pieces. When we publish our work, it must be a genuine one. That means the research must be targeted towards enhancing the already available knowledge. This brings some sort of anxiety among the researchers, because it is not the case that every time we come up with something entirely new, right? Now, what is expected of a researcher then? If it is, of course, welcome idea if you come up with something entirely new, but suppose that demands much time and then hard work and of course a level of competence. But what about those who can't come up with something entirely new? Can we say that research is not meant for such minds if new things are not coming in the mind? कहते हैं नहीं, रिसर्च करो तो कुछ नई चीज निकल के आनी चाहिए. It must be original. And suppose originality is not appearing, then क्या करें? उसमें रिसर्च में जाएं ही नहीं, रिसर्च ही ना करें. If your guide is already aware of certain research problems, then it becomes rather easy to work on that. So it's a kind of expectation where we look for a research problem from the supervisor. This is one thing. And of course, it saves our time because students don't have that much exposure, right? And a supervisor working in a particular area expected to be aware of at least easy research problems which are normally discussed and the things which are not yet discovered, right? And that is the whole purpose of having a supervisor. Otherwise, what is fun of having a supervisor if supervisor is not competent enough to know the things and be aware of certain research issues? The supervisor may not have an answer to a particular problem, and that is the idea of engaging continuously in research activity, right? So when a student comes up with certain things, so supervisor should also aid something, and then in a joint effort, the research must progress, right? That is the idea. But my question was slightly different. If something entirely new is not coming, for example, you have the expectation of innovation, right? And you see how much innovation is taking place. So innovation is a kind of new addition to the already existing thing. This new addition is something which is your contribution, right? You are innovating, you are adding to the existing machine, or you are adding to the existing knowledge. So this is a kind of original contribution you are making. And you know that it's not an easy task. It requires a lot more effort and a very holistic approach towards the problem, right? So can one say that if nothing new is coming from your research, then it is not a good research? It cannot be called a research at all? What is your thinking on that? अभी तो आप लोग सीनियर बीटेक स्टूडेंट्स हैं, आप सारे लोग कुछ ना कुछ प्रोजेक्ट कर ही रहे होंगे. हाँ, ओंके सर बोलो.
Sir, research is like it's a very incremental change in already existing works.
Right.
बहुत delta amount का change अगर हो रहा है, then you can call it a research. ठीक है.
Original research. You call it that original research. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Delta और real life में बहुत आप अच्छे पेपर्स देखो, you won't find कि दो पेपर्स आप उठा के देख लो तो आप देखोगे कि उस दोनों में ना इतना सिमिलैरिटी है, बट देयर इज अ वेरी 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 डेल्टा अमाउंट ऑफ चेंज इन बोथ ऑफ देम. जो एक्चुअल लाइफ में जो भी रिसर्च हो रहा है, दैट इज वेरी वेरी स्मॉल एडिशन टू व्हाटएवर ऑलरेडी एग्जिस्टिंग.
That is true. Yes.
और जो लोग कंफ्यूज करते हैं कि लाइक वो एडिशन ने फॉर एग्जांपल बल्ब बना दिया, दैट इज नॉट रिसर्च, दैट इज इन्वेंशन. दैट इज एडिशन इन्वेंटेड समथिंग.
Yes.
अगर सबसे पहला उसने किसी ने भी दिया होगा, then that is invention. But later on जो भी addition होते गया, that is called research.
And how do you differentiate between invention and discovery? Any idea?
Discovery is something like you just come out of you find something out of surprise, sudden.
Right.
Like Vasco da Gama discovered America or something like that.
So you discover something which is already there, right? You enter in a room and suppose room is dark, so you don't see anything, and the moment you turn on your light, so you discover so many things there, right?
Yeah, it's
So you
already
discover
डिस्कवरी में
because it
जैसे
is already
जैसे
there.
मैथ्स के कॉन्सेप्ट होते हैं वैसा
हाँ.
होता है, जो चीज ऑलरेडी एग्जिस्ट करती है नेचर में हम उसको ढूंढते हैं और
Yes.
इन्वेंशन में हम कोई नई चीज क्रिएट करते हैं ग्राउंड जीरो से.
Good. Sneha Shees, right? Yes. So this is the difference between invention and discovery, right? Invention is a kind of developing something which is new. And of course, you are using the existing materials, that is fine. You are just refashioning the existing material. But then the product, whatever product you produce, that is new, in fact. New in the sense that it was not there. And in discovery, of course, you discover something which is already there. You just happen to see it. And, for example, the law of gravity. Was it an invention or discovery?
Discovery.
Here, Aniket Thomas on the codes for engineers. You also have something to show, or you will read out?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, sir, actually, there are many different what we call engineering associations, like IEEE. You might have heard about it. Then there is Institute of Civil Engineering and what we call American Society of Mechanical Engineer. But one of the prominent among them is National Society of Professional Engineers. Like it's not topic specific, but it's like general code of ethics for all the engineers around the world. And it was established in 1934 in New York. So currently its headquarters is in Alexandria, which is in Virginia in USA. And it was founded by David B. Steinman. So what are the fundamental points that are listed in the Code of Ethics for National Society of Professional Engineering? So the first point, they said that hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public. So that's expected. Like the engineers are creating the things which are used day to day in the life, like the bridges or some electrical equipment. So the safety and the welfare of the public should be kept in mind while creating those things. Like if you don't keep this in mind and create something malicious or evil, then it might harm the society, and which is against the code of ethics. And the second point is perform service only in the areas of their competence. Suppose a person is graduated from electrical engineering, and now he is going to do the work in civil engineering and gonna build the bridges. So this might put the people in the path of risk and might cause harm because he is not proficient in that area. So this is also one of the fundamental point, like perform services only in the areas of their competence. The third point is issue public statements only in an objective and truthful manner. Like we don't expect the engineers to lie about something which they have created and all. Act for each employer or client as faithful agents or trustees. The fifth point is avoid deceptive acts, and the sixth point is conduct themselves honorably, responsibility, ethically, and lawfully, so as to enhance the honor, reputation, and usefulness of the profession. So let's dive deep into what each of the points mean. The first point is engineers shall hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public. If engineer judgment is overruled under circumstances that endanger life or property, they shall notify their employer or client and serve the authority as may be appropriate. Engineers shall approve only those engineering documents that are conformity and applicable standards. Like engineers should not use something which are not meeting up to the standard, like below the standard. Suppose some spare parts which are outdated and they used in their equipment, so it might create some problems and issues. So they should not use this type of equipments which are below the standard. Engineers shall not reveal facts, data, or information without the prior consent of the client or employer, except as authorized or required by the law or this code. Engineers shall not permit the use of the name or associate in business venture with any person or firm that believe is engaged in fraudulent or dishonest enterprise. Like we should never use the fraud and dishonest enterprise name in our business ventures and all that stuff. So engineers shall not aid or abet the unlawful practice of engineering by a person or firm. Engineer have knowledge of an alleged violation of this code shall report thereon to appropriate professional bodies and when relevant also to public authorities. Like when he found that something is against something, some company or some person, some engineer is carrying out the task which is against these rules, then he should always report it to the professional bodies. Like you can report it to the this only National Society of Professional Engineering and so on. Engineers shall perform services only in the areas of their competence. So like I previously mentioned, like suppose a electrical engineer is working in the civil engineering department. So if he does not have that knowledge or the relevant information regarding the subject, then it might cause great loss or harm if he carried out that work. So engineers shall undertake assignments only when qualified by education or experience in the specific technical field involved. Engineers shall not affix their signature to any plans or documents dealing with the subject matter in which they lack competence, or not to any plan or document not prepared under their direction or control. Engineer may accept assignments and assume responsibility for coordination of an entire project and sign and seal the engineering documents for the entire project, provided that each technical segment is signed and sealed only by the qualified engineer who prepared the segment. So this point clearly highlights the issue. Like suppose let's take the reverse example: a civil engineer who doesn't have a knowledge of computer science engineering, and he goes to an IT firm and he don't have any knowledge, and he's working on some project that might Zoom or all service he's working on, and he didn't have the required knowledge, and he signs like okay, we shall use this technological stack, and at the end it might prove that he has used all the wrong things because he doesn't have that knowledge. So it might be wrong on the part of that engineer. So the third point: engineers shall issue public statement only in an objective and truthful manner. Like they shall not be issue any public statement which is subjective, like it varies from person to person, or it has some sort of deception in their statement. Engineers shall be objective and truthful in professional report, statements, or testimony. They shall include all relevant and pertinent information in such report, statements, or testimony, which should bear the date indicating when it was current. Engineer may express publicly technical opinions that are founded upon knowledge of the facts and competence in the subject matter. Engineers shall issue no statement, criticism, or arguments on technical matters that are inspired or paid for by interested party unless they have prefaced their comments by explicitly identifying the interested party on whose behalf they are speaking. Like they shall not take any money and change the facts and present it in front of public. So that's wrong on their part as well. The fourth point is engineers shall act for each employer or client as a faithful agent or trustee. Engineers shall disclose all known or potential conflicts of influence that could influence or appear to influence their judgment or the quality of their service. Engineers shall not accept compensation, financial or otherwise, from more than one party for services on the same project or for services pertaining to the same project unless the circumstances are fully disclosed and agreed by all interested party. Like you should never, an engineer should never take a same project from two different persons in the exchange of money. Like if both the parties agrees, and then it's acceptable to take the project, but it should not be like he's working on some project in one company, then he takes the project in another, same project in another company to earn some amount of money. So that's not acceptable. Engineers shall not solicit or accept financial or other valuable consideration directly or indirectly from outside agents in connection with the work for which they are responsible. This also take care of the previous point. Engineers in public service as members, advisors, or employees of a government or quasi-government organization or department shall not participate in decision with respect to services solicited or provided by them or their organization in private or public engineer practices. Engineers shall not solicit or accept a contract from a governmental body on which the principal or officer of their organization serves as a member. And the fifth point is engineers shall not avoid deceptive acts. Engineers shall not falsify their qualification or permits of their or their associate qualification. Like we have seen some cases where some BTech graduate is presenting their fake degrees as a MTech graduate, or some person working in some other domain presenting another degree. So that shall not be presented because it might cause problems when they are working on the project. Engineers shall not offer, give, solicit, or receive either directly or indirectly any contribution to influence the award of contract by public authority, or which may be reasonable, constructed by the public as having the effect or intent of influencing the awarding of the contract. They shall not work any offer any gift or other valuable consideration in order to secure work. Like it take care of the case of briberies and all. Like you are giving bribes to some official to get some contract and all. So we shall not be involved in such a case. That's all. Some of the fundamental code of ethics of India. That's it.
Let us have some reflection on the points which you just thrown in the discussion. So consider engineering is that kind of profession which has a direct impact on the society. That day we were discussing that teaching is a profession where we do not have direct impact, a large direct impact on the society. It is all through students or through the trainers, right? But engineers have direct impact on the society. That means whatever they do, that is going to affect the quality of life of individuals. That is going to affect the happenings in the environment, right? And because of this very strong impact on the nature and the quality of life of persons, and in fact, every living creature, living and non-living creature, a greater responsibility is expected, right? So consider when you have greater effect, then this competence, this is a very strong power, right? And because of this strongness, you must feel responsible also, right? And this responsibility is because of your knowledge, nothing else. You have gained knowledge, and it is that which made you a competent user of that knowledge, and you enjoy a greater autonomy in using that knowledge. And because that knowledge or utilization of that knowledge is directly influencing the life of people, the responsibility is much more greater, sensitivity is much more required, right? So engineers are designing instrument for surgery. And if that instrument is not of good quality, then what will happen? You are taking life of someone, right? Because of a bad design of that instrument. Or the chemical engineers or biotechnologists, they all are in fact doing certain things which is directly influencing the life, right? And then of course, civil engineers, computer engineers, right? You are designing codes. And if the code is not perfect, then what is going to happen, right? You just see on planes, it is autopilot, right? Most of the time when you have a long journey, then most of the time it is autopilot which is driving the plane, right? So consider if the code is not of that kind, then a lot more people's life will be in danger, right? And because of such great impact, expected impact, we need to have very high standards of morality. We need to maintain that. And you have very rightly pointed out that one must perform only in the area of competence. This is very important. आप मान लीजिए एक घुटने के डॉक्टर हैं और आप किडनी का ऑपरेशन करने लगे. It's something like that. So the area of competence, you have seen that profession is a specified domain of human activity, right? So specified, that means you get training of a particular profession in a very specialized, narrow area of your activity, right? So therefore you are supposed to perform only in that area in which you have received training, you have competence. And if you are switching over to something else, then of course you must be more competent because you have gained competence in one area and now you are switching over to another area. So the area in which you are switching over, for example, many BTech students go for management degree, right? They join MBA. So you are going from the area of technology to the area of business management, right? So you must be doubly competent now, right? With your technical expertise, you are going to another area, and therefore this previous training must aid to the existing domain in which you are going to act, right? So this suggestion, this guideline is very important, that one must act in the area of competence, because it's not like any casual activity, right? If we are doing something in that area in which we are not competent enough, then what will happen? Our performance will be problematic. It won't be efficient, and therefore, finally, it won't be professional, right? So you can be called professional only when you are working in that particular area of competence. Then the third thing which you have pointed out, that is again very important, that you must act as a faithful agent of your client, as a trustee. Now, you have expertise, right? Your clients, they are just looking for your services and they don't have any knowledge to assess whether you are performing well, whether you are doing good or not. How they can know? Because they don't have expertise. That's why they have come to you, right? That's why they have paid you for your services. Now, if you are paid for something and you are going to serve, you are going to offer your services with your expertise, if you know that this is problematic, you must be fair enough not to offer that thing. As a mechanical engineer, for example, if you know that this particular part of any vehicle is problematic, this is going to harm life of someone, then you should not sell that. You are a professional. You are not a sabji wala. You want to sell somehow whatever sadagala you have. If you have that tendency, then you are no different than that sabji wala, isn't it? So you must perform as a faithful agent of your client. You are representing your client, and therefore the health of your client, the safety of your client, the well-being of your client must be taken in its extreme form. And you are trustee. You know what trustee, trust से trustee आता है basically. Trust किससे होता है? अगर आपको याद हो, जो हम लोग ने डिस्कोर्स ऑन ह्यूमन वर्च्यूज में ये कॉन्सेप्ट पढ़ा था, ट्रस्ट कैसे समझा था हमने कि हम किसी पे ट्रस्ट करते हैं, क्या कंडीशन है उसका, कि हमको ये विश्वास हो कि ये पर्सन हमें हार्म नहीं करेगा, हमारा नुकसान नहीं करेगा. जब तक ये चीज नहीं होगा तब तक ये ट्रस्ट वाला रिलेशनशिप बनेगा नहीं. सो यू आर ए प्रोफेशनल, and as a professional you will be a trustworthy person only when your client believes, sincerely accept that you will not harm that person. Now, if a client has come to you with this belief that you are a trustworthy person, so what is the expectation of your client? That you will not harm that person. None of your activities should lead to harming that person. And if it happens, then where is the problem? Certainly it is the problem associated with the professional activity. If we are doing something very deceptive kind, then there may be a short-term gain for that, right? You may have some immediate benefit, but then what is going to happen? You will bring bad name to that profession in which you are. People with different temperaments, different orientation, different interests join that profession. So how to improve on the situation? That is the question. How to improve on the situation? Certainly fantastic professionals are there, and the trust and honor of a particular profession is because of such wonderful professionals, right? But then the issues come, and the issues are because of those who have a not so professional way of looking at things. And wherever there is a problem, the problem is because of a highly unprofessional way of attempting that thing, right? So in order to bring honor or enhance honor or repute of the profession, we have to aspire for a very decent, very honest way of rendering the services. And how it can be done? The questions, philosophical questions, are not related to fishy kind of activities. For example, where you have immediate solution, and there if you are not offering that solution, then it's not just moral problem, it is legal problem also, right? Anyone can charge you. If there is already a solution, viable solution available, and you are making fuss of that, then there could be legal charges on you, right? The philosophical questions arise in a situation where you do not have any such solution. You do not have a clear guideline, a clear solution to a particular problem. And you see, with all your sincerity, you have knowledge, and in the domain of that knowledge, you know that whatever decision you make, you cannot guarantee a definite result. Consider, for example, when the patients are taken into the operation theater. So the persons who are the ward of that patient, they are asked to sign, and there are some rules that who can sign on that. Even if a small operation is required, it is the same form which is being signed by the guardians of that patient. And you know what is written in that? Even if it is the smallest operation and the very least possibility of casualty, it is the same form where one line is written that I will not charge the doctor if a death happens because of that. I don't remember exactly the line, but it is in a spirit this, that if a patient is dead, I will not charge the doctor. So you agree to that. Now this agreement, you are signing an agreement on what basis? You trust that doctor is not going to kill your loved one, right? The doctor is going to facilitate or try all possibilities so that life is saved. On that trust, you sign on that agreement, right? And if it so happens that patient dies in the operation theater, so it's not the thing that every time you charge the doctor. Sometimes, of course, you charge, and you hear news here now and then. People say that it was लापरवाही की वजह से डेथ हुई. So ये जो लापरवाही वाला है ना, professional codes are designed to tackle these issues, लापरवाही वाले issues. And for that, you have legal remedies, you have, of course, moral concerns. But wherever you find that there is no legal remedy, or there are no legal provisions, there is no guideline, and even in that situation, you are to take a professional decision. So what should be the concern? What should be the approach in that situation? A real philosophical discussion falls in that very area. अब साफ साफ पता है कि हाँ इन्होंने गलती किया, तो गलती किया ये तो पता लग गया ना. गलती किया मतलब सोल्यूशन अवेलेबल था, इन्होंने ढंग से किया नहीं. तो वहां तो बहुत सारे ऑप्शंस हैं. लेकिन जहां ये बात आती है, जैसे डॉक्टर कभी कभी कहते हैं कि भाई मैं करने तो जा रहा हूं लेकिन गारंटी नहीं कर सकता कि ये बच जाएंगे. और कई बार डॉक्टर कहते हैं कि भाई कोई होप नहीं है, अब कोई चमत्कार हो जाए तो हो सकता है. तो ये जो कहते हैं ना कि कोई होप नहीं है, ये 2 महीने चलेंगे या 6 महीने चलेंगे, एंड देन इन सर्टेन केसेस समथिंग हैपेंस इन फैक्ट. जैसे आपके स्टीफन हॉकिंग हैं. स्टीफन हॉकिंग के डॉक्टर ने तो बोल दिया था कि इनका तो काम हो गया, नहीं हो सकता है कुछ और आगे. But then something happened, right? And the whole world knows Stephen Hawking. The same thing happens every day, in fact, in some of the hospitals. तो ये जो सिचुएशन है जहां ये प्रोफेशनल अपना जो देखता है कि हमारा जो भी नॉलेज है उस नॉलेज के अंदर कोई सोल्यूशन नहीं है, लेकिन सिचुएशन डिमांड्स दैट वी मस्ट मेक अ डिसीजन. सो देयर actual tussle, actual effort lies there. And there your personality, your training, your interaction with professionals, it is all getting activated so that you make a proper professional decision, right? So I think that's all for today's class.